Greetings, my friends. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Let's Get Gritty podcast with yours truly, Dr. G.R.I.T. I'm so thrilled to be here with you. I hope you are having a phenomenal week and that you're overcoming hurdles and that you've remained gritty no matter what. Now, let's get to our show. First things first, I want to make some announcements for you. First things first, if you're wanting to be featured on the Let's Get Gritty podcast, please send me a photo and a bio to my email at india.white.123@gmail.com so that I can get you slotted for a show. Next, the Let's Get Gritty podcast with Dr. India White will be featured on Swain Girl Media channel, hosted by Precious Swain on Fire Stick, and it's also going to be on Spotify. Yes, that is correct. You will now be able to access the show on Spotify and, of course, on various social media outlets. Thank you to everybody that subscribes, that listens, that shares feedback and gets the word out there, because we are here to support you guys. And I love knowing that you guys are tuning in and that you're getting what you need in order to finish your amazing grittiness throughout the week. Now, I also want to make an announcement. Check out my website, www.india-white.com, for books, blogs, or to book me for a speaking event, a coaching event, professional development, and beyond. It should be pretty simple when you go to the website. There's a link and it just says book an appointment. Just tell me what you need and we can work it out. Now, let's keep going. I also like to remind you all, you phenomenal rock stars, to follow me on social media whenever you get a chance, because I love connecting with you. And so many of us have built our relationships over these social media platforms. And I'm super grateful for that. So first things first, you can contact me. Facebook is Miss India White. LinkedIn is The India White. Twitter is Indie Speak and Teach. Instagram is Indie238. YouTube is India White 123. And TikTok is Dr. India White. Yes, I know it's a lot. Also wanted to remind you guys of upcoming events. Yes, right now I am in California. California love, y'all. And I have a couple of events. First things first, I am finishing the grit and numeracy workshops for this week. But don't be too sad or disappointed if you didn't catch me this time. We could work out, some other times where I could come in and visit and do some other grit and numeracy workshops with you guys. But I'm currently going to be in California school districts throughout, and I'll be doing that up till today. And then I will be flipping hats, attending CMC Central with so many rock stars across our nation in various areas of expertise, and all of us together just bring all of us together, this inclusive effort. We're giving you our best. And so California, you're really in for a treat this week with all of these amazing leaders. I hope to hear from some. I hope to be able to support some of them and then maybe even join alongside some of these leaders as we join together to support you. Now, I do speak on March 9th at CMC Central, and it's at like 1 o'clock. Again, I am speaking at 1 p.m. It's like March 9th, so it's like Saturday. And I am giving away gifts and prizes to those that are in my session. Yes, I do come bearing gifts, and you'll be able to look at some of the other great things that we've got going on. So go ahead and visit us and visit my session. Give me a hug, give me a high five, and let's keep in touch. Now, I'm going to talk on the show today about teachers and about, in particular, teacher mentorship. Now, why am I so passionate about this? Because I have been reading a lot about the retention rate of teachers and how teachers are burning out. Teachers are starting to consider other careers. They've had enough. And I'm going to be honest, I don't blame them. But then the first thing I think of is like, where was their support? Did they have a mentor? Did they have someone to kind of walk them through this? And I think sometimes we as educators, we can be so hypocritical when it comes down to this, because like we're like, oh yeah, support the student, and the student needs a mentor, and the student learns from their peers, and give that student everything they can, set them up for success. But then we throw teachers in the ring by themselves, no support. They're not getting paid what they need to be paid or what they're even worth. And then on top of that, they have all these other issues, and they feel like they don't have backup whenever they do raise their voice and talk about a situation that's going on, whether it's in the classroom or, just in general in their teaching practice. And sometimes teachers feel like they don't have anyone that really has their back. And I wish that could be like a motto or like a theme that teachers can adopt in the season, especially teacher mentors, is that you would choose to have the back of the teachers that you are mentoring, not stab them in the back, have their back. Again, we're not stabbing each other in the back, we're having each other's back. And honestly, if you can't have the back of those teachers, just keep it moving, because teachers already have so much going on and they already have to feel undermined and feel criticized and get talked down to, feel like they're belittled, feel like they're undervalued. The last thing they need is to then put their trust in someone that is simply there, smiling in their face, and the whole time stabbing them in the back. So I want to encourage all of you out there that if you really are aspiring to be a teacher mentor, develop that mindset of I'm going to have that teacher's back no matter what, when they're in the room and when they're not in the room. And if you're one of those people that you can't have the back of somebody that you claim, right, to be a mentor to them, keep stepping, dismiss yourself, because you're doing it a disservice and you're kind of in the way and you're doing more harm than good. And I hope that that's no one watching my podcast, but I digress. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the research. I found an article from a woman named Miranda Bauman, and she talked about mentorship, teacher mentorship. She said that mentorship promotes rapid learning. She found that from Stanilis and Floden from their work in 2009. And she said that it builds a level of consistency that's useful in all aspects of the day-to-day practice. Now, this is pretty neat because I think what a teacher mentor really does is it gives teachers a solid way of work so that they can practice that and it becomes consistent, and they kind of take those ideas. It's kind of like when you're going on a learning walk in a classroom or in a school, and you're looking at the more developed, more competent, more experienced teachers. You're learning and you're taking nuggets and pieces from this one and nuggets and pieces from that one, and that's neat, right? But then eventually it becomes your own. You start to duplicate some of those things. You chew the meat, you spit out the bones, and you make it work for your classroom environment. And that happens more effectively through teacher mentorship. So teachers, we need teacher mentorship to help with this. Now, Miranda continues, and she says that the benefits of teacher mentoring includes team teachers, leadership, and teacher retention. And that is, I think, a part that's really kind of standing out to me now is also teacher retention. What are we really doing to retain these rock star teachers so that they're not going into other professions feeling offended, feeling burned out, feeling undervalued? And so with that said, we've got to start looking at mentoring and what is a teacher mentor? What are the roles of a teacher mentor? So with that said, I did find an article from MSU, one of their leaders, and it talks about the roles of a teacher mentor. And they said some of the roles included having planning and communication, supporting the interns' understanding, and more. I'm going to actually pull that up for us so that we can walk through this together. And so I just thought it was really neat what they were talking about. So let me get it to where you guys can see. So now we're talking about the roles of a teacher mentor. So it says mentor teachers are models of teaching who support and monitor interns as they begin an intensive and sustained period of learning to teach in a context of practice. And it talks about their responsibilities falling into three categories: planning and communication, supporting the intern's learning, and then, of course, the assessment of an intern's understanding and progress. Now, that last bullet here, the assessment of the intern's understanding and progress, this right here is where you really have that teacher's back, or you're going to stab them in the back. It's going to be either way. And I hope that you rock star teachers out there are getting the first, that you're getting, other than the latter point, that you're getting people that are really signing up to mentor you, that are going to support you and advocate for you and have your back. That when they're having conversations about your teaching practice, it's not being said in a way where they're trying to subjectively suggest to the principal or to the administration that, you're not a good fit, or that, you need to be cut, but that instead they're trying to work on plans to help mold your practice and to keep you in the ring. And so with that said, I'm going to come back to this, but I do want to give a shout out to a phenomenal teacher mentor that I had, named Dr. McPherson. She was amazing. My first years of teaching, I did not know anything. I was very new. I just knew I liked hanging out with students. I liked teaching. I liked giving. And I remembered some of the things that she did. Like, she would check with me on lesson plans. But most importantly, she made sure I submitted like certification requirements on time, that I had enough professional development, that I knew how to register to take the test to be certified, that I knew how to understand the teacher evaluation rubric. I think we were using like Danielson or something back in the day. But she really walked me through these things so that I wasn't like a deer in the headlights. When my principal came in and was like, "Okay, India, I'm gonna evaluate you," or he's like, "Oh, we're gonna do whatever." Like, she really walked me through this, and she protected me. She was like a mother hen, and she even taught me some effective teaching practices. She gave me that book, Harry Wong's 100 Days of School. She spoke to me about not being super friendly with the kids, because when I first started teaching, I think I was 21, 22. So I mean, I looked like them, I was young like them. So she helped me to be professional, and to just kind of have a professional appeal. There's nothing wrong with having your vibrancy and being you, but at the same time, teachers are expected to have a professional etiquette about them. And so she taught me what that was like. She taught me, you don't come to school wearing any everything. Like, you have a certain conduct, a certain way you react to students, a certain way that you provide praise and feedback, and a certain way that you show love to students. You don't cross boundaries. And I thought it was very important, as I was trying to establish myself as a credible educator, in the field. So, I thank God for her, because she was powerful, and she was wonderful. And her results showed, like, she would get fives on all of her English exams. And I taught math, she taught English, but look, she still mentored me. She did a phenomenal job. And not only did she mentor me, she mentored so many other teachers. She was very effective. So I just want to give her a shout out, because she really showed me love. When I was brand spanking new, knew absolutely nothing, she helped me with pacing, like learning how to not grade everything, take everything home, grading till 8 p.m. on Saturday just to turn around and do it all over again. She really taught me that time management. And so she taught me how to like balance out my passion for, making sure that I'm, teaching and effective lesson planning and grading. She helped me to balance all those things so that I could still have a life on the weekends, and still be me, and not burn out, in my first couple of years of teaching. So shout out to you, Mrs. McPherson, Dr. McPherson. I know she's watching. So I want to give her a shout out, but I want to go back to this article, and I'm going to snoop around a little bit on what they were saying regarding other things for roles and responsibilities for teacher and mentor. So let's look into it. All right, let's keep going. So it says planning and communication. Okay. They're telling me to ask for something. I'm like, no, I don't want to ask for anything. Okay, so let's keep going. Planning and communication. You have to negotiate a sequence of opportunities to learn that support that your intern's gradual induction into teaching, and then moving from observation to co-planning, and co-teaching to the assumption of lead teaching responsibility. So they're saying you're negotiating a sequence of opportunities to eventually have a gradual release of control as a mentor teacher to a teacher that is either new or teaching a new field, so that you don't just throw them into the wolves, but instead you're teaching with them, you're co-teaching with them. And it's so imperative that when we are teaching with teachers, that we sound respectful, and we're not talking to them like they're 8 years old, but that we understand these are still genius adults, rock stars. Some of them might be new to the profession of teaching. That doesn't mean that, they don't have, already a reputation established, already a professionalism, or a career that they had before. Like, we have so many teachers from all walks of life, and it's only respectful and the right thing to do to make sure that we're gradually releasing them to have as much control as possible, while respecting them and showing them dignity at the same time. Now, they keep going. They say here, establish regular times to discuss your teaching with your intern, and to help the intern with the long-term planning, identifying unit topics, identifying places in curriculum where the intern can try out ideas studied in university classes, and the suggesting appropriate curriculum materials in school district resources for the intern to use in planning and teaching. Now, listen, this makes me think of when I first started teaching certain geometry, when I was teaching high school math, high school math. And I remember I had a really awesome department head. that was great at this. His name is Chad. I'm gonna give him a shout out. I don't know if he'll see this or not, but he was wonderful. And I remember that he would be very specific on the standards and what the expectations of were, of the standards. He made sure that we understood what was being asked of us and how we can assess that from our students. And he did not let us off the hook. Like, we had to meet during our PLCs, and you better come correct. Like, if you didn't come correct with the standards and what you were doing, like, all eyes were on you. And there was so much pressure, because I remembered when we were doing this, all of the teachers would bring, their lesson plans, bring their assessments, and talk about these results. I mean, yeah, we would respect the privacy of the students, but if you were the weakest link, it showed, and it was not good. Like, and I liked that pressure, because it really made you step up to the plate and own your practice as a teacher. It made you own competency. Like, you don't want to be an incompetent teacher. Like, you want to have some type of swag to your profession, right? To prove that you know what you're doing and that you're a good fit for the position as a teacher. And so it doesn't matter how great you plan a lesson. If the kids aren't learning and you're not getting results, you got to kind of look at that and reconsider and see what you can change. And so he helped us with that. I'm so thankful for him. And so, yeah, so that's huge that we focus on the standards and make sure that teachers, especially beginning teachers, are understanding the standards lingo, and that they understand, like, for instance, certain math topics, higher math, they might not cover something like matrices, but it might still be in the standard. So then that's a conversation you might have with your students or with your teachers that you're mentoring, to say, hey, this is no longer a standard that is required. However, if you want to expose that student to this higher level of matrices and this problem, and you're dealing with students that can handle it, and you have time, and you've shown that these kids have performed maybe above average, they're proficient, and they're wanting more, and you don't want to go too far, ahead of the pacing guide for your district. Okay, throw a little bit of matrices in there, but it's a give and take, and you have to know your students, you have to know your school culture, your school climate, you have to know where everybody is at, you have to know where the state is saying those expectations, what the pacing guide is saying, and how you truly prepared those students and done a deep dig of the math, so that you're not leaving any content out before you're throwing in standards that really aren't being covered anymore. If that makes sense. So let's keep going. I want to keep talking about this article here. So it says, now, during periods of lead teaching, read the interns' lesson plans and provide oral and written feedback regarding the general focus of the lesson. Okay, so that's like the extent to where the lessons teach conceptual understanding. Whoop, whoop. And how well does that individual lesson tie in with the long-range unit goals? You want to also consider the effectiveness of their lesson in terms of introduction to the lesson, and then also motivation and development. So activities that involve the students actively constructing meaning, rather passively listening to the teacher, and then the conclusion. So basically, what's up with your lesson? Like, what activities do you have in there? Do you have project-based learning? Shout out to you, Maggie. What do you have in your lessons that is really going to help the students be engaged and to motivate them to participate, and to show you that they understand that conceptual understanding is flowing, and that you're not just teaching it over their head and they're looking at you in a glaze, but that they're really getting it. And then they talk about here, communicate with a field instructor as needed about the intern's progress. This is where you can either have that person's back or stab them in the back. And I hope we are having our new teachers' backs, because they need us more than ever. So it says here, communicate with the field instructor as needed about the intern's progress or problems or concern that arise. And that is, if there are problems and concerns, how are you talking about that in a way where you can still cheerlead on that person? Like, when I was a math coach, we had situations where I would have to tell, administration, yeah, we're focusing on this, and yeah, they were a little bit behind, or yeah, their students weren't as proficient, but I'm really hopeful that, we're going to implement some things. I'm going to check this out again in a week, and I'll let you know. But I think he's on the right track. I think she's on the right track. Like, I went to bat for them. It wasn't like, you're having a conversation and you're like, this person is horrible at teaching. I mean, all the kids are just tanking their exams, and I don't even know how long they'll last for. They seem like they're burned out. They're just tired. I don't know if they're a good fit. We need to get them out of here. There's totally different tone, totally different motive, and a total different vibe. Just everything is different. And I'm talking about the same person. There's a way to do it. There's a way to respect teachers that you're mentoring, and there's a way to have their back and not stab them in the back. Because it's like we all needed grace when we got started. We all needed a little bit of mercy, a little bit of understanding, and someone that we could try to duplicate some of their ideas, someone to look up to. So why not be that person to show a little bit of grace and mercy and help? And I understand, like, oh, but the kids need the best. Yes, the kids do. But I'm going to tell you, I'd rather have a kid have a teacher in the classroom than just keep going through eight permanent subs a year. Like, we need teachers that are certified, that are signed up for this, that went to school for this, to have opportunities to mold their craft so that they can grow and evolve as an educator and not be shot in the foot or have the rug, swept out from underneath them by the people that they trusted. And I think that it affects the teacher morale. It affects the morale on campus when teachers feel like they don't have support. And then that makes me think about administrators. Are we, have we crossed over to the dark side as administrators where we are not really like, it's all a game of, oh, well, I'm going to get rid of them in 2 months anyway, or I'm just going to, like, what are those conversations like with the administration team? Are we really, trying to advocate for these teachers, or are we allowing them to be burned out with discipline problems and, we've just given up on them, so we just let the kids just have them, throw them into the wolves? Or are we really putting in different incentives and supports in place to help our newer teachers and the teachers that are being mentored, right, so that they can be retained? Because I don't care how great of a principal you are, if you have 40% of your population of teachers is always leaving and it's a revolving door, oops. I think, you being the common denominator, you're going to have to look at some stuff and figure out how can you stop that revolving door. A great school culture is one where the teachers stick around 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. They don't want to leave that leader. And I had a leader like that, who I just did not want to leave him because he was amazing. And I'm so thankful we're still, somewhat connected, and we always have had a good vibe, and he was wonderful. And I just did not want to leave his leadership. He was a nice leader. He just got it. It worked. I don't know, like, and that is something that can't be taught all the time. That comes with experience. And if we're expecting our teachers to be just like these awesome, solid administrators and principals and math coaches, we've got to help them, at their stomping grounds. Like when they're getting started, we have to help them to evolve into greatness. And that's going to come with a little bit of grace. We don't want to cut everybody down and fire everybody. And like, we really want to work with these educators and give them a chance. So I hope that, administrators and leaders, district leaders, whatever, that are listening to this, you can have a softer or more tender heart towards educators that are just getting started, and looking at your policies and looking at how you're evaluating them, looking at how you're giving them extra chances to get their stuff together. So I digress on that. Let's continue to look at some other points of this article here, where it's talking about roles and responsibilities of mentor teachers. It talks about be a role model for intern in dress, deportment, and communication. This is powerful because interns might not know how to dress. They might think, oh, it's like going to Walmart, just throw on a pair of jeans and shirt and I'm good. I mean, we used to have like so many dress code policies because, sometimes when you're teaching, you're just so comfortable. I'm just going to wear my flip flops and, wear my visor and just whatever, I just don't care. But the students watch that. And unfortunately, sometimes the students come up with negative perceptions of us and negative opinions, and they just see it as not professional. And so in order to avoid getting caught up in that, we have to do our best to strive for excellence, even in the way we dress and in the way that we communicate with our students and in our community. Now, the next part here says to participate in mentor teacher meetings during the academic year. This is huge because sometimes a mentor teacher, they'll be assigned, like a teacher will be assigned a mentor, And then the mentor just goes ghost after about the first or two times, like they're gone. Like, and they're like, what happened? I'm like in the ocean by myself. I don't know what to do. So I think mentor teachers need to definitely be more intentional to keep those appointments with their teachers and to really be an advocate for them throughout the school year. Don't just let them go. They're like your teacher baby. You know, you've got to help them. You got to feed them. You got to nurture the teacher in them and help them to be excellent. And so let's keep going. So now we're going to talk about the next point, which they said was supporting an intern's learning. So they said you can do this by co-teaching. Now, I had a situation where I had a friend who was starting as a teacher and unfortunately had a very humiliating experience where one of the administrators came in and instead of teaching with them, they took over and taught the class and basically shoved the teacher to the side. And it was so humiliating. And basically, they just showed off that they were just this great, whatever, this great stuff, and left that new teacher feeling crushed. And it was not pleasant. And the students noticed it, the vibe changed. It just got really awkward, really cold. And that is not what we want to do. When they're talking about co-teaching, they mean co-teaching. Take turns. You know, I had some awesome opportunities to be a co-teacher, and some of the people I co-taught with are still in my tribe today. I'm thinking about one who he's amazing. You know who you are. Anyway, and you know, the thing about co-teaching, it's you're tag teaming. You're peanut butter and jelly. You guys are together. You're doing this together. If they're down, you're down. If you're up, they're up. You know, like you have to get to a place where when you're truly co-teaching, you know, everybody is striving to be the best. You're striving to lift everyone up. So let's keep going. It talks here about using the observation checklist to provide regular feedback to the intern. Now, don't do this to the point that it becomes so overwhelming that it seems like it's micromanaging. Figure out, first off, the communication style of that teacher. Do they prefer you to write on like a sticky note? Do they want a text message? Do they want an email? Do they want like you to provide like sample copies of how you would teach a particular lesson? Do they want you to provide them like a YouTube little educational clip on some strategies? What do they want from you? Have that conversation up front so that you're not offending, because sometimes we misunderstand communication levels, and as small as that is, that can be offensive. And certain people are more sensitive than others, and we assume, oh well, you know, this is just how I am, you know, they're just gonna have to deal with it. Well, you're gonna lose that mentee. They're not gonna care to come to you for anything, because they're gonna see it as a slap in the face, and that's not why we signed up for this. So make sure that you're doing what you can to also be respectful and to keep dignity, even in how you communicate with them and how you're providing feedback, because you might be their only hope to staying in the profession. So something to consider. Now let's keep going. It says participate in joint conferences as indicated on the calendar. Exactly. Keep your calendar. Keep those appointments. Do not cancel those appointments on newer teachers. All right. Now, I'm going to keep going because this is so much information. It's so good. And I'm so thankful that they wrote this. So now they're saying the assessment of an overall intern's understanding. This is the third point that they provided to us here, the Department of Education for MSU. It says mentor teachers will provide interns with written feedback and place it in the intern's notebook, reflect with the intern about his or her teaching, about the student learning, and about ideas and strategies studied in university courses. I think that's very interesting because, yes, they need to have some type of introspection so that they're not going to be their worst critic and shoot themselves in the foot and then get out of the profession because they're not perfect. You know, it talks about here modeling the intellectual work of the teaching by sharing goals and beliefs. Also co-planning, as we discussed earlier, and then discussing dilemmas. Now that right here, discussing dilemmas, this is where you can decide whether or not you're going to have their back or you're going to stab them in the back. And I hope that it is the first part where we have each other's back. And then assessing their progress. So it talks about how whenever the last point, I guess, when you're assessing their progress, help them to know their subject matters and how to teach it, how to teach them. Literally, because you can know a topic, but you might not be a rock star teacher. Like you might not know exactly how to communicate new knowledge, to a crowd, or you might be shyer, or, there are a lot of genius mathematicians that could teach, but I don't know if they can keep a crowd. They might not have wittedness, they might be too friendly, or they might be a little dry in their delivery. There's like so many different factors that affect the learning environment. So we have to be mindful of that as well. And then also teach your new teachers how to work with students, because you've got to get to know those students. You have to learn how to work with those students and help them to open up to them so that they can become, vulnerable and build those relationships at the same time. And then, of course, working and learning in a school and in a profession, learning the ropes, the culture, the norms of that school, the etiquette. I worked in one school where the etiquette basically was you came to school in a dress and high heels and you were like spiffy, you know what I mean? And then I worked in another school where they're like, you don't need heels. Like you need to just tone it down, wear a t-shirt, keep it moving. Like, because the culture was different. The expectations was different. So something to work on when you're really trying to mentor a new teacher and help them to, fit the mold and to do a proficient job as an educator. Now, let's keep going. Mentor teachers will also participate in assessment conferences as they're scheduled throughout the year, and help them to begin thinking about their careers as educators, reviewing their portfolios, videotapes, letters of recommendation. And of course, this is for if they're not in the field, but already in the field. I think that you can take that a little bit further. Instead of maybe review the portfolio, you can start reviewing teacher evaluations. And also, sometimes teachers will review portfolios, because even if they are a teacher, they might be striving towards certification or, promotion or something. So they might still need this information, and they still need letters of recommendation. And so you could really help them. And then, of course, here it talks about having an exit performance description at the end of the academic year. So if they're working on like an ippy dippy or something like that, then yeah, those are some things that you can do to help your new teachers to thrive in the classroom setting. So with that said, this was pretty fabulous. And I hope that you guys were able to learn something about teacher mentors. I don't want to keep you too long. So with that said, I just want to thank you so much for joining me. And I really hope that if you are in the space and you have power to mentor others, that you would choose to have their backs and help them build their teacher practice, versus stabbing them in the back or being that person to just drive them out the door, out of the education profession altogether. So it's my hope that, we're going to have each other's back and advocate and stick together, because we need each other. And this is an amazing tribe to be a part of. So with that said, thanks so much for joining me again on the Let's Get Gritty talk show with Dr. India White. Again, check out my website, www.india-white.com, for books, blogs, and to schedule me for your next speaking event. And then if you're wanting to be featured on the show, yes, you can send me your email with a photo and a bio to india.white.123@gmail.com. And of course, this show will be featured on Swing Girl Media Channel and on Spotify. And I would love for you guys to follow me on social media, which again is Facebook is Miss India White, LinkedIn is The India White, Twitter, Indie Speak and Teach, Instagram, Indie238, YouTube is India White 123, and TikTok is Dr. India White. So with that said, guys, it's been fabulous. And until next time, stay gritty.